Welcome to Cooking with the Connection. I'm Carolyn, and today we're going to make Japanese rice balls, also known as onigiri. Let's get started. We're going to start with some Japanese sushi rice. I bought the pre-washed sushi rice. This prevents you from having to wash it over and over again and then lay it out and dry it. It's just a lot easier. So we're going to put that in our pan. About 3 cups of rice with 3.5 cups of water. We want the rice to be finished a little bit dry. It'll be cooked all the way through, but you'll have individual grains and you won't have that like starchy stickiness. It'll just be sticky from the rice itself. So we're going to bring that to a boil and add our salt. We're going to cover it with a lid and let that cook. Once it comes to a boil, we're going to reduce it to a simmer and let it go for about 20 minutes. While that's going, we're going to start on our fillings. We have some Carolina pink shrimp that we're going to chop up, and we've already cleaned and deveined them, so they're all set to go. We don't need any shells or anything on there. Everything should be removed. And we're just going to chop those into really fine pieces. This is going to go into the middle of our, so we don't want them to be too big. And we're going to move those into a bowl. Then we're going to add about a tablespoon of soy sauce. This adds salt and delicious flavor, and really is good for the marinade. Then we're also going to add some sesame oil, about a half teaspoon. You don't want to go overboard with the stuff; it can really overpower the flavor. Cooking will tamp it down just a little bit. Just a splash of mirin. This adds some sweetness and accentuates the sweetness of the shrimp. That is a seasoned rice wine. We're just going to give that a stir. We're also going to add some ginger later, about 5 minutes before cooking. We don't want the ginger to overpower the flavor of the shrimp, so that's why we're not adding it right at the beginning. Now we're going to chop up our salmon. So this is a sashimi grade salmon, so it can be eaten raw, since that's how I'm going to do it here. You don't want to just use regular salmon if you're going to have it raw. If you're just going to get regular salmon, then make sure you cook it first before you cut it up. But sashimi grade is available at your sushi counter or Asian markets typically. To that, we're going to add some mayonnaise and some sriracha that we're going to mix together. This is your spicy mayo that makes it spicy tuna, like in a sushi restaurant. So we're just going to give that a mix, and later we're going to add in some scallions as well, just to add some extra flavor and some freshness. So we're going to clear this up, and then we're going to get started on our rice. Rice is finished cooking. We're going to transfer it into a wide bowl. You want it to be wider than it is tall, so that it's got lots of surface area so that it can cool quickly. We want to cool it before we add the vinegar so that it's not, the vinegar doesn't evaporate, because that's what's going to give it some flavor and give it that kind of trademark sushi stickiness. So transfer that to your bowl, and we're going to use a folding and slashing motion to fluff the rice. This helps it to cool and doesn't break up the grains too much. So if you break them up, that can affect the texture. It should have a little bit of integrity from being a drier rice, but we still want to make sure that we're careful with it. So while that's cooling, we're going to make our shrimp. We're going to add a teaspoon of sesame oil to our pan and get it hot. And again, you don't want to go overboard with this, but a little bit is okay. And then we're going to add our shrimp, and we're going to spread these out and just cook them on one side. That'll give us caramelization without overcooking them. Shrimp, once they're opaque, they're done, and they get opaque very quickly. So we just want to spread them out, let them touch the pan, and get a sear on one side. And while that's happening, we're going to continue to fluff our rice and try to cool it as quickly as possible. And once it's cool, it'll be not steaming as much, and you'll be able to touch the side of the bowl easily. We're going to sprinkle in our vinegar. We want to fan our rice paddle over the rice as we're sprinkling in the vinegar, just to make sure that it gets everywhere and touches everything. We don't want to just dump it into one place, otherwise it's not going to be evenly distributed, and we're just going to get really wet rice in one spot. So again, we're going to fold it and slash it until everything's mixed in. Our shrimp should be done by now. Like I said, they cook very, very quickly. So we're going to transfer those into a bowl, and you'll see, one side has some nice sear to it, and it'll be really tasty inside. So now we're going to form our onigiri. I have a press here. I will post a video or a link to a video that shows you how to make them by hand. I'm not very good at it. So we're going to start by just filling our press about halfway with rice, and that will give us some room to put our fillings in the middle, and then we'll top it up. So fill both sides. And then we're going to put our salmon, our spicy salmon salad in the middle. You can see we put some scallions in there, and you should add about a teaspoon or a little more than a teaspoon. I'm adding far more than that just to show you, and I really like mine overly filled. You're gonna see a little bit of the salmon on the outside, but that's okay. That'll let you actually see what's inside as opposed to just a ball of rice. But in Japan, they don't want to see anything in the middle. I don't think it's that big a deal. As you can see, I dipped my fingers in that bowl. That's some of the leftover vinegar. That helps the rice not stick to my fingers. It's very sticky. If you don't dip your fingers in the vinegar, you'll find it everywhere. You'll suddenly find a grain on your elbow later, and that's not fun. So we're just going to dip our fingers in there, and that'll help us to spread it out a little more easily. So now we're going to put the lid on and just compress it. You want to press it down and make sure that the lid goes as far down as it can go. That will give us some nice pressed onigiri, and they'll stick all apart. And then once we turn it over, we just press those little tabs and out they pop. And then we see some filling on the outside. It's not that big a deal. We're gonna wrap it in some nori. That'll just give some textural contrast since nori is kind of crunchy, and add a little bit more of flavor of the sea, a little more umami. So we wrapped those, and we'll just put those on a platter and get started on our shrimp, which same process, but you'll see that in just a second. So you can fill these with anything that you like. I chose salmon and shrimp, but you can make them vegetarian and go mushrooms or vegetables. It's entirely up to you. So we're gonna fill them up halfway, and then put our shrimp in the middle. These are really, really popular in Japan. That's why I chose the seafood, since that's pretty typical of Japanese cooking, to do a lot of seafood. But like I said, you can fill them with anything. So meat is really good. I like to do them with like pork or beef as well. Mushrooms, tofu, like seasoned and cooked. So it's really up to you. So we're going to turn them over and pop them out, and there we go again. And you can top these as well with anything you'd like. In Japan, they do nori, shiso leaves. They even put a little pickled plum on the outside sometimes. We're going to put some scallions, some other ones. We're going to put some sesame seeds, and then at the end, I'm going to show you how to actually sear some. So that'll be good. So we have one that I just left plain. And we're going to rub the outside with a little bit of sesame oil. You can also use miso. That also has, makes it taste really good. And we're just going to put that in a pan and sear the one side and brush the other side with some sesame oil and turn it over. And that'll make it super tasty. It'll be like that rice at the bottom of the pan that everybody always kind of fights over. At least in my family, they do. And that kind of crispy, crunchy rice, and super tasty. So we're going to bring back our other onigiri. I made some more off camera and topped them with some of our extra sauce. And I made one that's kind of like a California roll with some of the extra salmon. So I put some avocado and some cucumber in there. Like I said, you can put anything in there you want. So up to you. The only mandatory part is the rice. So there we go. We took out our seared one, and you can see it's got kind of a nice browning. I hope you enjoy. Thank you.